Hi, I'm Mary Kinloch, and we're going to do an agapanthus plant in 1/12 scale today, and this is our sample. And I'm first going to show you how to paint one of the sheets. I'm going to dip my brush in water. I'm using acrylic paint that's called a light periwinkle, and every once in a while dip my brush in some water to make the paint flow. Now I'm going to paint long strokes from one side to the other. Dip my brush again in a little bit of water. Okay. Now the most important thing is don't leave it lay on this wax paper. The paint will seep under and become rubbery. So I'm going to flip it over immediately and paint the other side. Make sure everything is covered. Get a little bit more water here. Not a whole lot of water, just a tiny bit. Now I'm going to take a hemostat. You can find these in craft stores or really flea markets, probably online. And I'm going to clamp it. Now when I hold it up, I can see that there's like a little bit of paint in the spaces, so I'm just going to give it a little blot on the wax paper. Okay, now that looks better, and I'm going to hang it on the edge of the table to dry. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is we have this new wire that I got. It's called sugar flower wire, and it's real thin wire, and I'm going to paint it. And oops, got a bad glove. But anyway, normally I don't use a glove. I like to stick my fingers in the paint, but so that I don't have to get up in the middle of the video, I'm going to do it like this. So I'm dipping my fingers in paint. I'm going to run my fingers down the wire, make sure I get it all covered. There's a place that's not covering. Okay, then I take my dry fingers and I kind of get rid of the excess. Okay? This new wire, it will ravel a tiny bit, but once it's painted, that seems to not be a problem anymore. Then I'm going to hang it over the edge of the table to dry. Get rid of my glove. Okay, now I use craft foam to shape the petals. When this sheet is dry, I will take a little bit of antique white and a small paintbrush and put a little dot in the center of right about where the hole is. The real flower has a stamen and some other details that are just about impossible to do this small. So I do a little dot that kind of helps give it a little bit more detail. Now the next thing, after that's dry, I'm going to remove these flower petals, and the way I do that is I put an X-Acto knife right at the connection and just give it a little bit of a push. Okay, now every once in a while one will stick, but if you start it with the X-Acto knife, then you can pick them out. I know that gets frustrating because most of the time when you touch that connection, they come right out. Okay, see like that one did. Okay, then the next thing I do with them is I take a ball stylus and I press in the center of the flower with the little white dot up. And that makes the flower petals cup up. Okay, now they're ready. The next thing I'm going to do though is I'm going to use my white glue and Zap-A-Gap. I use regular Eileen's tacky glue. Zap-A-Gap is a type of super glue. I get it on eBay, usually in the model train section. Okay, I'm going to put out a couple of drops of that. Now my sugar flower wire that I have painted is dry, and I cut it up in little short pieces. Okay, now I'm going to take a 24 gauge wire and my real pointy tweezers. I found these, they do have them on eBay. They're quite expensive now. I didn't pay $48 for mine, but that's what they're going for nowadays. Okay, I'm going to dip the very tip of that wire into white glue and then just a tiniest touch of the Zap-A-Gap. I'm going to then put it on the end of the wire. Now it's supposed to make an instant bond, and of course it didn't, so I'm going to hold it there for a second. Okay, let's see if it will do an instant bond this time. If you dip too much Zap-A-Gap, it will be wet. That one worked. Now what I'm going to do is just keep adding these little pieces of wire until it makes a ball. And someone asked me how many of these I do, and I don't know. I do as many as it takes so that it looks like a ball of flowers. You can always go back if you didn't put enough on. You can always go back and do it again. Okay, now the next thing I'm going to do that I'm going to show you here is I put gel medium mixed with the periwinkle paint on the tips of this wire. Gel medium is a type of gel that I mix with paint, and this is what it looks like after I've mixed it with the paint. You can see it's thick. If it were too thick, I could put a couple drops of water in it to make it a little thinner. And then I've gone and touched each one of these wires to sort of make it look like a trumpet that's behind that flower. Okay, then after it dries, I'm going to take one of our little flowers that we painted and dip it in white glue, then the Zap-A-Gap, and I'm going to just place it on the very tip of that wire. Things behave much better when you're not trying to film it. Okay. Sometimes I'll do it again. There. Okay. It's probably my tweezers maybe have gotten a little bit of glue on them, which is making them not cooperate. So I try to wipe the tweezers off and feel periodically. The other thing is freshen up your glue frequently. A lot of people try not to waste this little dab of glue, and it's better to waste it and get better results. Haha, that one I did. Okay, now if I find that once I put all those flowers on, it is not full enough, I can then go back and add some more wires. One of the things I just realized that I forgot to tell you is when you add wires, you can see that these are all different levels. And what I do before I start putting the flowers on is I trim this little ball of wires so that they're all pretty well even. Okay, so it's like a little small ball of wire sticking out. Then I put the gel medium on, then the flower petals on top of that. Okay, the other thing I do is in the center where all those wires are connected, take a small paintbrush and dip it in your green paint and just touch the center so that it's not like looking like glue. You want it to look more green like a real plant. Okay, now the only thing left to do is the leaves for the plant. And if you take a look at the finished plant, it has a lot of leaves that are very similar to, say, an iris. What I use is the Japanese art crepe. It's been my favorite paper for many, many years. And I've painted this paper green, and then I'm going to cut one side, cut the other side, and then trim off the point so it's not quite so pointy. Okay, now the one thing that I love about this paper is that it will curl like ribbon. So you see, by just stripping that, it's curled so that when I add it onto my flower, and I'm going to dip it in white glue and zap-a-gap. When I do a potted plant, I put Sculpey clay in the pot. I don't bake it, I put glue, white glue, with a couple of drops of water, which will then make it not be shiny, and then I use model railroad dirt. I don't use coffee grounds or tea or any of those things because they're organic, and in Florida they will mold. If you live in northern climates, a lot of people do use those organic type things. Okay, so normally what I do is when the glue is wet and I have the dirt on, I put the flowers in and then arrange all my leaves. And what I did is I cut a whole bunch of leaves so that I can and vary the sizes of them so that you can add some shorter ones and some longer ones. And typically what I do to get it around the stem is bend the leaf in the middle with your tweezers, strip it, and then you have a little place for the wire to sit. Okay, and there we have it, agapanthus plant. I hope you will make many of them. Thank you very much.